Do you think AIs will become conscious? Do you think current AIs are already conscious?
I think the question is harder than a lot of people give it credit, right? We don't have a final theory of consciousness to begin with, so it's hard to say that a large transformer model is incapable of consciousness. I don't know how anyone has the grounds to say that. That said, I don't view consciousness as some kind of like primitive, right? Like some kind of like panpsychists believe that everything is a little bit conscious. It's conscious, nor is consciousness just a product of like a lot of information processing. Just integrated information theory would have it. Consciousness seems very specific and very functional, right? We are mostly unconscious. We are 99% philosophical zombies for almost everything that we do, and the conscious experience we do have is very limited in some ways. Our brain tricks us into thinking we're more conscious than we really are. But then you introspect and think about what are we conscious of? And we tend to be conscious of things that surprise us, new things that enter the scene. When we're in the process of learning a new skill, we're hyper-conscious. Practicing something that we're already adept at, like driving a car, we can go on autopilot and sort of steer and drive and get to our destination with barely paying attention. And so consciousness, in terms of the sensational experience and inner theater that we sense that we have, seems deeply related to learning and our ability to form coherent models of the world.
I guess the question there is often for any function you can name or any evolutionary pressure that could have resulted in consciousness, you could always imagine some agent that can do that thing without being conscious.
But this goes to the point about sort of us being mostly unconscious, right? We are mostly, when we're driving a car, if we're an experienced driver, we are driving it unconsciously. And so consciousness only enters the equation if we need to learn new things. So consciousness seems very deeply interconnected with both online learning, our ability to learn in real time, and how we allocate attention, as well as coherence. You cannot be conscious of something incoherent. Our mind strives to make the things that we perceive in some ways coherent. If it fails, then you just see noise, right? And I'm really just recapitulating Yosha Bach's view because I think he's done the best thinking on this, where he talks about consciousness as a kind of coherence operator. And he kind of flips the script. He says, well, actually, maybe consciousness is the first thing we develop as babies, right? Because we are conscious from our earliest moments, at least from memory, but that consciousness seems integral to our ability to then acquire the skills that then build upon those skills and get us to a high level of agency. So consciousness may come first, not last. And if that's the case, then it may actually be much simpler than people imagine. It may be a product of self-organizing forms of intelligence. We don't come equipped with a trillion parameters, then with initialized weights, and then our brain is a self-organizing system that builds upon itself from the inside out. And consciousness from that perspective may be the most natural kind of learning algorithm that is acquired by such self-organizing systems.
Do you think it'll be replicated by AI then? Do you think we will learn to create artificial consciousness for the purpose of learning more efficiently, perhaps?
Yeah, and this is also Yosha's conjecture, is that one of the reasons why current generation models struggle with both coherence and agency is deeply related to their lack of consciousness. And it may be that future systems need to have some kind of proto-consciousness to be as sample efficient as we want them to be, to have the coherence over time that we want them to have as agents.
Interesting. I guess on the flip side, you could also worry that consciousness is computationally costly in some way, and so any system that's conscious would be outcompeted by a system with the same function but without consciousness.
But would that system, so if consciousness is integral to online learning, would that system be frozen in amber?
I think you can get to basically any level of intelligence without being conscious. And I think it's not necessary to reach a certain level of intelligence. I can imagine a superintelligence without any level of consciousness at all.
I can as well, but I think it would, if you want a system that can learn from experience and learn from new sensory data and new inputs, consciousness may be the way you do that. And because we are embodied and embedded in our own inner theater, it's hard for us to step outside and imagine something that's not. But there are, like you said, there are costs to consciousness. People who are very productive at work, we call that getting into the flow state, right? And in some ways, being in a flow state is being less conscious, right? I sometimes can only get into the flow state late at night, where parts of my brain are starting to power down, and I can sort of just lose myself in my work. And I'm slightly conscious, but the fact that I'm so productive is actually due to the fact that my inner monologue and my self-consciousness has dialed down. But on the other hand, if you are a sleepwalker, you have all the faculties, your brain is still there, but you've lost the coherence operator that is letting you act coherently in the world. And so there may be an inevitable trade-off here. And if Yosha is right about consciousness being first rather than last, then it probably isn't that computationally intensive. It's probably just what it feels like to be a unified system that is striving for coherence with a degree of recurrence, and the kind of strange loop going on in how it allocates attention.
What does this mean for AI safety? I guess one worry is that the future will be dominated by just very smart systems that are unconscious, and therefore some form of moral value will be lost. But perhaps if this theory that you're laying out here is right, and consciousness is deeply involved in learning, perhaps there's some future AI systems with consciousness will learn something about morality, something about what we mean when we say pleasure and pain, good and bad. Do you think it would be good for AI safety if consciousness is somehow involved in the process of becoming more intelligent?
I think so. Again, I'm really echoing Yosha on this, where there's a lot of danger in building kind of unconscious golems that can do everything we can do but have no inner light. In part because one of the other forms, a lot of human learning is done through social learning. Arguably most of our learning is done through social learning, through mimicry, imitation, adopting the norms and mores of our peer group. And that capacity to learn is also related to consciousness. This is why we say when you're, you feel self-conscious when you're in an environment that you feel awkward in, because you're sort of attending to your own behaviors and mannerisms to make sure that they match the convention. What that means in practice is that, like, consciousness is integral to our ability to form resonance with other agents, right? When you're in a deep conversation with somebody, you can feel a kind of the boundary between your consciousnesses start to dissolve somewhat. And this is, I think, integral to empathy, right? And why empathy is also related to learning. And if we want advanced AI systems to sort of be in our image, right? And to see themselves in us and vice versa, then they need some capacity to resonate with us on a conscious level. That would be my intuition. And I also just think that, like, if things do go haywire and rogue AI takes over and, like, humans are a dead end in the evolutionary tree, I'd much rather that new species have consciousness. But this is also, I admit, a chauvinistic point of view.
Yeah, I guess all of this is extremely speculative, but it's still important. I mean, someone has to think about these topics. You write somewhere that if you imagine a future and it doesn't seem like sci-fi, you're on the wrong track.